Hello, hello. Believe this is working. Let me go ahead and get this stream up out on social media. And that should be the email letting me know that the stream is up. Okay, so give me 1 minute here to just get set up. This was one I wanted to pull up. Just get everything I want in front of me. I need to make a table with a swing and everything, but I know Kyle Conduct of UVA made something here. But still, so we'll look at that. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Chaz Nuttycombe, the director or executive director of State Navigate, a nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit based here in Virginia. And we are open up in five states, which includes Virginia, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Utah, and South Carolina. We are next opening up in Alaska. If you want to figure out what states we are opening up in next, you can go to statenavigate.org and go to our state selection plan. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Virginia on the results last night with just a little live stream. This is going to be the best way for me to kind of do this and to show everybody just kind of what happened and give my immediate thoughts. We're going to be doing a write-up and synopsis about how our polls did, which did pretty well, and how our forecast did, which also did pretty well. That will be in a written format by me and others at State Navigate. Probably Jack and I are going to write on the forecast bit, and then I'm going to run stuff by polling team as we talk about why our poll was so accurate. I'll talk a little bit about just kind of some immediate lessons that come to mind when it comes to polling and forecasting in Virginia. And this is mainly focused on Virginia. State Navigate is not quite open up in New Jersey. We also didn't have as much data on Jersey. So Mickey Sherrill outran our New Jersey forecast, I believe, by like 10 points. I think we had her by like 5 or 6, something like that. So she outran it a lot, and it was very reliant on polling. Our Virginia forecast was a little bit different in that it partly relied on fundamentals. And what are fundamentals? Fundamentals include, in that forecast for predicting the Virginia governor race in the margin and everything, the net loss in approval from the president, the economy, so that is change in unemployment, change in inflation, change in the stock market, and obviously previous election results feel like that's kind of a no-brainer. I always forget that. It's like, well, that's obviously going to be in the fundamentals. But so our fundamentals model had pretty much no error. I believe our fundamentals model final one had Spanberger 15. However, we included polling in the weighting, of course. This fundamentals model went back to 2005, and the average error rate was 1.9 for absolute error. And it was pretty much because of a polling miss that we only had Spanberger up by 11 in the forecast. Of course, State Navigate poll had Spanberger up by 13. Had polling been the polling industry had done better, and like State Navigate's poll in Virginia, and we'll talk a little about why that is in a long form written piece, but I'll talk a little bit about it today. We would have done better. But let's talk about yesterday. State Navigate was the first group to call the Virginia governor race for Abigail Spanberger. Why did we do that? Ben Tribbett is a Democratic consultant from Northern Virginia. And I want to shout out to him for throughout pretty much my time, throughout my career and my life over the last 8 years, has been a mentor to me and is a lot smarter than me. And so he saw in the early morning where things were headed. Texted me, that this is going to be a historic wave. And it wasn't really until a few hours later when we're getting in that precinct stuff in from these localities and we're seeing clear county trend that we saw that Abigail Spanberger was at least going to win by 9 points and more likely than not by double digits. That was based on a lot of the data that we got from registrars all across the Commonwealth, who I also want to shout out for their service to this Commonwealth on Election Day. We were able to get a lot of precinct results and a lot of county results throughout the day. And we had seen that white conservatives were staying home, and not just in Southwest, but in places like Virginia Beach. And that you also saw a electorate that was definitely going to be less white than 2021. 2021 was a 74% white electorate in Virginia. I believe yesterday I said 72 or 73, probably in the ballpark. I think it's probably going to be closer to 72% white. And that was going to work for Abigail Spanberger. This was, I believe, the most diverse, racially diverse electorate in a Virginia governor election ever, like racially. So saw that, and we felt very confident that Abigail Spanberger was going to be governor. We're like, let's get this out the way and get to brass tacks, which was what was the ticket split rate and lieutenant governor going to be. And so not long after that, we called it for Ghazala Hashmi. And then we were also the first group to call the attorney general race for Jay Jones. We were able to make that call because we looked at the completed counties and we noticed that there was not much of a difference from the 2024 presidential results in those complete counties. And there was probably maybe 20 or so that were complete all throughout Virginia, and had seen that Jones was doing worse with a ticket split rate in these very educated areas, but that he was running behind in these areas with lower college education. I had said this, after our 73 poll in Chesterfield County, that more likely than not, Vieras having a more educated electorate would work for him, but that he would be probably not getting what he needs if these low and mid propensity Democrats, especially without a college education and are more racially diverse, came out. I talked about that in, I guess, a little bit of a theory. I talked about that on the Federal Fallout podcast with Sam Shirazi. I believe I tweeted it out as well. On, this pretty much theory on, well, if I'm a Joe Biden voter, right, and I am unhappy with Joe Biden, had voted for him in 2020, right? Let's say that, and I don't go out and vote in 2021 because, well, I don't like Joe Biden and I don't want to really vote for a Democrat right now. I don't want to do this in 2022. I don't want to do this in 2023, and I'm not even set out 2024, right? These are especially non-white Democrats in Virginia, and those who are less likely to have a college education. And so a lot of them sat out, but they came out for this on Election Day. Now, why did they come out for Election Day? Well, pretty much the last time that they had voted, and this isn't the vast majority, but I think that we'll see it was a substantial amount of the electorate, that these low and mid-propensity Democrats, some of which who only voted in maybe 2 at the most of the last 5 elections, voted probably like in 2020 by mail. And they haven't been on this big train in Virginia in early voting, where it's like, okay, let's go vote by mail, let's go get on that permanent absentee list, right? Or let's do early in-person voting, which Republicans embraced throughout the Biden presidency in Virginia. And in some dividends, it did pay off during that time. But those low and mid-propensity Democrats were not used to this. They were like, well, no, I'm going to go vote on Election Day. And that seems to what have happened. I believe, I don't know what Abigail Spanberger won the Election Day vote by, probably a single-digit margin of some sort. Have literally not been able to check. But that's what we had in our poll. I think we had her winning Election Day by 2. She probably won it by a little bit more. I want to say in our final State Navigate poll, we had her winning by 2 for Election Day voters. We also had turnout be higher than expected. It was at about 53% of registered voters came out in this thing, I think, when all's going to be said and done. We'll see how things go over the next week as these provisionals and late mail go, but it's probably going to be 53 point something percent, which is not that big of a drop from 2021. So that was that theory, and I wanted to put that out there because I thought that, well, there's a lot more room for Democrats to grow in their margin if these people come out, because disproportionately the low and mid-propensity voters are Democratic leaning. So, and that's what happened. They outperformed our forecasts. So we had Spanberger by 11, Jones plus 2, and Hoshby plus 6 in our forecast. And again, it would have done better if the polling industry had done a little bit, had been closer to what State Navigate had. So why did the State Navigate poll do better than the rest of the pack? Let's get into it. So there's a few things here for why the State Navigate poll did better than the rest of the pack, or State Navigate polls. And our methodology did change between one poll to the other, but it still helped. We had a similar partisan breakdown, quite frankly, in the final poll versus the poll like a week before, and there's still margin of error, but let's see here. Okay. So this is the one where the final poll, I had noticed that the exit polls in Virginia, particularly the 2017 exit poll, was not useful. We used data from Catalyst and AP Vocast, and I think that a lot of us are missing AP Vocast stuff when we talk about the Virginia exit poll last night, which was hilariously off. I think it had Spanberger plus 9 or 8 point, like almost 9, and then Mieres plus 2, and that did not materialize. So as far as I'm aware, when I was texting G. Elliott Morris, who works with us on polling and is on our development committee, he said that the AP Vocast is not really a thing anymore, which is unfortunate because we looked at the data and it was very, very good for estimating what was the partisanship and the demographics of the Virginia electorate. We also used Catalyst, which had a great report on what the 2021 Virginia election looked like. So you can read through it on our site. Go to statenavigate.org/Virginia if you want to go into all of it. But pretty much the summary for why we did better can be found at the bottom of our last poll. And it was pretty much the differences in weighting choices. A lot of polls decided to weight their off-year election in Virginia and New Jersey to either the previous gubernatorial makeup of the electorate or the previous presidential year. Why was that a bad idea? I had talked about this a lot, particularly for Virginia, that this was going to backfire because never in history the Commonwealth of Virginia has the out party of the White House not had a turnout advantage. The only question is how much of a turnout advantage they have. More likely than not, this electorate voted for Kamala Harris by low double digits. For context, Virginia voted for Kamala Harris by 5.78% in 2024. So, we looked at Virginia history thanks to Catalyst and AP Votecast and other previous elections as well in Virginia, and determined that the likely party ID was going to be D+8. It was probably D+9 when we talk about leaned party ID. So we were about a point off. Probably only 40% of the electorate was Republican. Maybe 41%. And we were plugged into, I believe, 41%. So, you know, it's unfortunate there's no AP Votecast data because we're really never going to know what the leaned party ID likely was. But looking at our poll and previous AP Votecast data, that's likely what it was. And we also used Gallup. And Gallup, we had seen the largest shift since Gallup has been doing this quarterly party ID with leaned and non-leaned. The largest shift from Q4 to Q3 was Q3 2025. An 11-point shift for the Democrats from the 2024 Q4 leaned party ID. 11 points. The other largest, or second largest, is tied at 6. It is Q3, Q4. Yeah, so it's tied at 6 from, Q3, Q4. And that's 2018 levels. So, yeah. Or, with the Dobbs effect, moving by 6 as well. And so we used that to figure out, okay, what is the likely party ID probably going to be as well? So that's how we did better. Trying to weight, especially to 2021, was quite silly. Any poll pretty much that weighted to the 2021 Virginia governor election underestimated Abigail Spanberger by half of her margin. And I had noted that this was a mistake. And then the 2024 polls also underestimated her, but by a smaller margin, of course, because that was a bluer electorate. But at the end of the day, we were going to see a bluer electorate than 2024. Generously, it would have been, on a good night for Republicans, Harris +7. But that did not happen. So the Democrats overperformed. We got 96 out of 100 seats right in the Virginia House of Delegates. That is what it looks like we have. And we had a really good night with race calls in the House as well. Anyway. Okay. So that's a little bit on the forecast as well as the poll. Let's get into the actual results themselves. Republicans have lost all of their gains, effectively, not just in Virginia, but nationwide, with the groups that they had gained with in 2024. That is young voters. That is Asians. That is Latinos. It's gone. It is back to 2020 levels, or even in some places bluer than 2020 in the partisan vote for those electorates, for those demographics. For example, at Virginia Tech, Blacksburg had swung 5 points to the right, just about, from 2020 to 2024. Somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know what Abigail Spanberger got in Blacksburg off the top of my head. But this is not a turnout differential thing when it comes to youth voters. Because there were more people voting at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg for these 18 to 24 year olds who are there in town than there were in 2024. And they zoomed hard to the left, millennial left. And this is what we have seen in national polling. At the end of the day, we now know, because there were two options here when it came to the youth voters. Either A, because Trump won 18-year-olds last year by 1 point. Either A, this was going to be the most conservative generation since Gen X, or B, they're very anti-incumbent. Your political opinions largely are more elastic, and you are still forming the beliefs that you are going to hold largely for the rest of your life, and especially your teenage years and through your mid-20s, for the large part. So now these youngest voters who had maybe their high school graduation taken from them, or maybe their college graduation taken from them during COVID and blamed Democrats, or had seen this inflation under Biden, are now seeing they are holding resentment toward President Trump for not delivering on campaign promises he made last year, on delivering the cost, on lowering the cost of living. The job market as well, for these college graduates, is worse than when he took office. There was also, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm being anecdotal here, but I have friends who I went to tech with, who voted for Donald Trump last year. And I don't think some of them were really happy given the whole tariff stuff and the stock market crash earlier in the year. I don't know whether they voted. I only know one that voted this year. But I kind of do wonder, and I don't think we're really going to get any data on this, but of just how well Democrats did with young men. We've seen this sort of vibe shift, right, with these comedian podcasters and everything go way to the left compared to last year, right? I'm wondering just how young men went in this election, particularly 18 to 24-year-old men, and how much the gender gap was in this, governor election in Virginia and in New Jersey. Latinos also came out strong. In Manassas, Abigail Spanberger did 22 points better in Manassas, which is in the heart of Prince William County, than Kamala Harris. And if I recall correctly, Asian turnout was lower than 2024. But, when Loudoun County dropped all their votes, we knew that Jay Jones is very much on track to win. But it does seem like the Asian vote, whether it be in Virginia and New Jersey, right? There's a Pakistani area in New Jersey that swung 100 points to the left from the 2024 presidential result, from Trump to Cheryl, right? That's New Jersey. Um, so yeah, okay. Um, that's a little on the demographics. I already mentioned Loudon. I want to talk about what this could mean for 2018. In all likelihood, we are heading for. Sorry, I kind of gave a spoiler there, didn't I? 2026. In all likelihood, we are looking at a 2018 level environment in 2026, where we're probably looking at a high single-digit range, Democratic generic ballot environment in 2026. Why is that not showing up in polling right now? In all likelihood, because the party ID in these polls is off, and they are not caught up to where places like Gallup are, or they're waiting to 2024. That's not every single poll, but there is definitely that issue in polling right now. I think that we have very much seen this, and this so this is one of the things. Waiting an off-year election polling to a previous presidential year, I don't think is smart when you talk about results or demographics or anything, because they're going to be vastly different in that off-year election than that presidential. So I think we're probably going to see polling industry see their misses, and notice what we did in Virginia that worked, and probably change their trajectories for 2026. So yeah. Now that being said, you know, I think that waiting a presidential environment, as you know, I think academic research showed, weighting your polls to recalls for presidentials for an actual presidential year will get you will work for you more often than not. Right? Those polls, I believe, in 2024 did better than those that did not wait, i.e. Selzer did not wait to the presidential, right? And we saw how that went. But yeah. And so, you know, Kyle Kondak of UVA posted this. One of the crystal ball, UVA crystal ball interns made this graph that showed the flips. Yeah, just the flips last night. And what their results were in 2023 and 2024. And Democrats won 5 seats that voted for Donald Trump last year. They won in 2017 1 seat that voted for Donald Trump. Did they win any in 2019? No. They did not. They didn't win it. They didn't win any seats in 2019, if I recall correctly, and somebody can correct me on this if I'm wrong. But they didn't win any seats in 2019 that voted for Trump in 2016. They voted House District 28, which voted for Trump in 2016, and Stafford did flip in 2019. There's just that one, but no more than one. So yeah, not even in 2017 they didn't win a Trump district. It was just 2019 that they won a Trump 2016 district. But that being said, I mean the Democrats outperformed our forecast largely, and again that is because of weighting polling. So we do have that less. We're going to do a synopsis and see how we can do better as we prepare for 2026 by looking at Virginia. I say looking at Virginia because, again, we did a lot of research on Virginia and built this fundamentals model, which we didn't really have in Jersey. Didn't really have it. It was largely reliant on polling in Jersey. We see how that went. But so we're going to look and adjust for 26. Because, again, Democrats won 4 more seats than expected, and they did a lot better on the margins than what our forecast had. So, for example, House District 22, I'm going to need to pull up the actual forecast. I'm sorry. House District 22, we projected in our final forecast as Guzman by 2.3%, and she won by 9.3%. The effect, I think, of the government shutdown was very pronounced in Prince William and Stafford. Our Stafford forecast, this is where you have a lot of federal workers in these counties. We had Paul Mildy winning by 1.2, and he lost by 5.7. And look, I had felt that our House District 64 poll, which was somewhat weighted to the presidential recall, it was a little bit bluer because that's what we saw in the election day vote, the early vote, that it was going to be a little bit bluer than 24. Our sample wasn't really that great. We didn't really have we didn't have the money to make it higher quality in terms of getting a younger electorate that was similar to 24 and a more diverse electorate similar to 24. We weren't able to get those, and a less college educated electorate to match the demographics of the district. We had Mildy up by 1 in our final House District 64 poll, and that was off by 6 points. We only spent maybe $1,000 on it, and if we had it just a little bit more, we probably would have gone into the field another day or two to try and get a better sample. But even still, I think with the weighting decisions that we made, it would more likely than not have only been maybe 2% better. And again, we on the House polls, we decided to wait to 2024 because there's no hard data on the House delegates district level to figure out, okay, well, what's the likely partisan composition of the House of Delegates district in those years. So we waited to 24. Biggest upset of the night was in House District 66. House District 66. The Dean of the Virginia House, Bobby Orrock, we had him up with a 68% chance of winning. And 68% chance is far off from 100% chance. But still, massive upset. Bobby Orrock we had him up by 3, and he lost by 4, which is insane. Some of these seats we did really well in. House District 41, in all likelihood, when those provisionals are counted for same-day registration votes, Lily Franklin will expand her margin by about a point or maybe 2. So we'll probably only be, either going to be on the dot in House District 41 or be underestimate her by maybe a point. We also did really well in Amanda Batten's race in House District 71. It was D plus 5.5. Projected margin was D plus 5.7. We underestimated Democrats in 73, and this was one of those seats where I was always so shaky because the formula that I had created underestimated Democrats here by 3 points. And that formula is about 15% of the weight. And I probably should have gone against it a little more. And I think our poll in the recall probably should have been on that ceiling of Harris plus 5. Then it would have been as high. But we were off by about 4 points here. But we did well in some of these others again. Now, Lindsay Doherty outperformed our forecast here by 3 points, it looks like. Kimberly Pope Adams, also, I'm surprised, outperformed our forecast by a point. House District 86, our poll did really well. We had that had Cardoza up by 6, and again, because of the 2023 result where Cardoza won by 13 points, we only had him up by a point in the forecast, but our poll had it up as Thornton plus 6. But we weren't just going to go off of our one poll, so Thornton won by 7. I was really surprised on 89. We had it as D plus 5. Carnegie looks like she won by 3.5 points more. We did really well. It looks like in House District 30, we were 1.4% off. And then we were a couple points off, of course, in House District 57. And that is, again, because of using 2023 when you just have these, like, these unique circumstances. Like in House District 86 with Cardoza, there was meager black turnout. Pretty much no black voters. I mean, not no, but like still. Very, very low black turnout. Whereas this year was closer to maybe 17 or 18% black voters were of the electorate this year. Probably 17 on the low end. We weighted our poll to 17. Could be 18. 2024 was 18. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, because of 2023, where you had a scandal-plagued candidate up against Owen, we had him losing by 8.5, and he lost by 14.4. So yeah. What else do we have? Some of these other seats were pretty good. I will pull up the results for some Republicans hold here. It does look like Democrats overperformed substantially in House District 34. This margin is going to be very close. Tony Wilt is probably going to win by the skin of his teeth once these provisionals are counted for the same-day registration votes. But they're, as far as I'm aware of our math that we ran last night, is not enough for Andrew Payton to scrape by. But so Tony Wilt looks like he's going to narrowly win. Could go to a recount, but he should narrowly win. Okay. So Andrew Payton outperformed a lot there. Democrats overperformed and didn't really put much money here. This was like only one of the supermajority 3, as I call it, that they targeted for the 3 seats that were going to decide the supermajority. I am really surprised that Wendell Walker's going to win by probably like close to what Trump's margin was, which is just really surprising to me. Now, I think that Democrats didn't really work much and try to get their candidate across the finish line here. So that's probably why. I think they had a stronger candidate in 23. But Wendell Walker overperformed. He's like one of the few Republicans that beat our forecast margin. Might be the only one. House District 49, Democrats overperformed as well. We had it going with a 9-point margin. It was definitely less than that. But, again, some of these other seats did really well. This one is going to be one to watch in 2027 with Mike Cherry. This is the last Chesterfield seat, and Chesterfield County is becoming a blue bastion. A lot of Yankees, a lot of transplants moving in, a lot of development for housing coming in Chesterfield. And so Mike Cherry is going to have his first competitive race in 2027 since 2021. When he was running for Kirk Cox's seat. This one is also probably going to be competitive in 27, I would think, a little bit. It looks like Tata actually did outperform the forecast. Also, House District 69, that was one we got wrong. And it is really interesting that Beverly got the third-party independent candidate got 3.5%. I thought that was going to be something that was going to hurt Downey, and maybe it did, honestly. I mean, he could have had a bigger win margin, but we had it as R plus 1.8, and he won by 3, just about. But you also had like some of these big margin of victories for Democrats in like Josh Thomas winning by like 17, and we had him up by 11. So in some places the House forecasted pretty well with a very small margin of error. but some of the Democrats just did very, very well. There's not many places where I think the Republicans overperformed. So, yeah. Okay. So that's what I think when we're looking at the House of Delegates, how we can extrapolate that for 2026. Okay, so those are my immediate thoughts on the Virginia elections right now. You will be able to find more written content probably by maybe tomorrow, latest Friday, for a kind of deeper synopsis on how State navigated pretty well, what the lessons we learned were, both in forecasting and polling. I want to thank everybody who has donated, who has supported State Navigate. I want to thank this team who are dedicated in our mission to making state government more accessible and open. I'm very blessed to be working with such a brilliant, talented team on our staff, on our committees, on our board, who have believed in the work that we do, not just in Virginia, but nationwide. And I am blessed to be the founder and executive director of this group. And I look forward for us to keep chugging along and go into 2026 and continue to open up shop in these other states, continue to expand our content, and to continue to kick ass. With that, that's all from me. Keep looking at statenavigate.org/Virginia for a little bit of a deeper dive on some stuff. We're going to, and not just articles, we're probably also going to put out maybe a couple of maps, some calculations for hopefully how these districts voted in the statewide races as well for House of Delegates. And yeah, so we're going to be crunching data, getting stuff out as fast as we can. And thank you all so much for watching. If you have donated, thank you so much for donating. If you haven't donated and you want a nice tax-deductible donation to make to our 501c3 nonpartisan nonprofit, you can go to statenavigate.org and go to donate. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.